All right, episode 102. Today, we're going to talk about the looming real estate market crash. We're going to get started right now.
Welcome to the only real estate podcast worth listening to, with your hosts Nick Good, Matt Kelderman, and Brian Force. Combined, they have 26 years of experience and have sold over 1,500 homes. Join them each week as they bring you everything you need to know about real estate. And now, here are your hosts, Nick, Matt, and Brian.
All right, episode 102. Today, we're going to talk about the looming real estate market crash that's going to be happening. But before we get started, if you have not gone to the only real estate group worth being a part of on Facebook, go do that, please. And today's show is sponsored by Sphere Rocket VA. If you're looking for an affordable virtual assistant, go talk with Justin Nelson over at Sphere Rocket VA. SphereRocketVA.com. He's going to hook you up. There's special prices.
Wow.
Yeah.
New studio today, and you're getting really thrown off.
That's because it's real fancy in here. But, I mean, I was on it for a second.
You were at 9,000 degrees.
Yeah, it's probably because it's so hot in here. But SphereRocketVA.com, you want to leverage out your business. You don't think you can afford a full-time in-person employee. You're wrong. Well, not the in-person. It's virtual assistant
They're still
world.
a person. They're in person somewhere.
True. Absolutely. Go to SphereRocketVA.com and connect with Justin. But, guys, we're new studio, same room.
Ooh, I like that shot you have right now. Yeah, man. I did this myself, so that's why it's so shoddy. But we're getting there. We got some more furniture to move in. It's going to be cool. I got this section back here I'm calling the Viper Room. I don't know if y'all get that. That's a punk rock club in downtown LA. But that's what that's going to be back there. So you guys will see this even next week. So
Hergenrother General Contractors coming soon.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. That'll be our least profitable business venture. Brian Force just trying to put up wood slats on your wall, all slanted. And
if you haven't done so yet, go over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review on there, please. And last week, episode 101 was our live show. Guys, that was awesome, by the way.
I had so much fun, particularly after the show, drinking with everybody. But the show was fun. We haven't talked about this in person yet. I mean, I thought we had a great crowd. We had about 50 people out there, which was super fun. We talked about doing this once every couple months. I just don't see a reason why not.
No, and we'll definitely get better on that and not get drunk before the show.
I didn't
either.
Get drunk before.
I didn't either.
If we start doing this all the time, though.
Yeah. But we didn't. We really didn't even do the Q&A like we talked about. And actually, this is kind of the first time that we did a podcast, and I got off stage and wished that we had stayed on longer because people were like, we always feel so self-conscious about the show. And then Matt was like, deuces, we're done. And then everybody was like, well, no, we wanted to talk to you guys. And I kind of felt bad, like we should jump back up there. So next time, first of all, thank you to everybody who did come out. It was super, super, super fun.
I mean, Aaron Foster drove down.
Thank you to Aaron for being there, man. It was super cool to meet some of our connections in person. That was super, super fun. And we'll do it again soon, and we'll definitely stay up a little longer there and really give you guys a little bit more value.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about dude, this is on everyone's mind right now. The looming real estate market crash. Right now, the search phrase on Google, "When is the housing market going to crash?" is up over 2,450%.
Why, like year over year?
In general. I mean, in general, right? Because look, you've got, and I've been sending this out to our database right now, where how many times have you talked to a buyer who's like, and I'm going to wait right now because I want prices to come down. The market's going to crash. Yeah. You remember 2008, right?
I was going to say, yeah.
Right? Remember 2008? Back then, everything, went to hell in a handbasket, and prices just went plummeting down.
I mean, but we were hearing buyers say that in 2016, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I was waiting for the crash.
Yeah.
It's okay. So before I give my opinion on things, what factors right now are going to lead to a market crash? I just want to hear what people's thoughts are, because it's very easy and it's like a buzzword to say like, oh, the crash is coming, but like, just explain that to me. Like, what does that look like?
I'll tell you, after doing the YouTube live stream that I did earlier this week, and that was a lot more consumer facing. So I know our show, there's a lot more industry people and things like that, but I will tell you the general consumer's just thought process is, there's no way it's sustainable. Prices are going up too fast. If they're going up too fast, that means they have to come down quickly on the other side. That is as far of the crusty layer as most people have gotten through. They don't understand the mechanics behind what would cause any of that to happen.
Sure.
Not because anybody's stupid. It's just because why would you as a general person understand all of that stuff? That is what I got from 600 people firing off nonstop questions was just, it seems like if it's going up this fast, it's going to have to reverse just as quickly at some point.
It's if there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
Right. And look,
Attitude.
logically, I understand the thought process, right? And I think it was in the mid-90s, episode mid-90s somewhere, we talked about the ethical, like, we had some agents that were posting, and I think even in Lab Coach you saw somewhere, Brian, where these agents are posting where is it unethical to be putting a buyer into a house?
Yeah, there
right
was
now?
one in Lab Coats that was like, how do you deal with the remorse you feel from getting a buyer under contract right now? And then like a lot of people said in a very wordy way, like, I don't.
Well, and I feel like I understand what the question is supposed to be that's being asked, right? I feel like the agent who's asking that question they don't probably fully understand what the mechanics are that cause a crash, right? And I'm
going to tell you that's scary.
Well, it is, and it.
Bro, I have asked people in the past. We've even talked about this in the podcast. Like you asked 100 real estate agents to explain how the financial crisis of 2008 happened, and 99 can't tell you that.
I bet you if you asked 75 agents or 100 agents, 75 of them couldn't explain to you how the loan process gets from beginning to end in the whole state. So I have no doubt they don't understand how the other stuff fell apart.
Yeah.
I sympathize with the question because I understand it's coming from a place of wanting to do right by your clients.
Sure.
Like that's why the question is asked in the first place. You can do more right by your clients by understanding the question you're asking, right?
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of agents are kind of failing right now is they're not taking the time to educate themselves on some of these things. I mean, and I say this rhetorically out into the world, do most agents know even when this foreclosure moratorium ends, right? Like, do they even understand when that part of it's happening,
Sure.
right? So there's a lot of questions I think that we're asking on the real estate side right now are being asked by clients that most agents do not even really have a clue what they're responding to. And if you are emotionally distraught about being a buyer's agent in this market, I just don't think you're doing your job.
We're just doing that thing where it's like, if it feels a little off,
then
like it's got to be bad and a bad thing's going to happen. Like, the reality is, well, I'll tell you two things are 100% certain. There will be a real estate crash at some point in the future.
Because there always is.
Because there always will be.
Eventually it's going to rain.
Exactly. Like
Yeah,
it's just 100%, right? At some point the sun will explode. I guarantee you, right? I just hope it's not tomorrow, but the idea of like feeling remorse over getting buyers under contract, to get more specific, the reason that I don't foresee a crash just because of rising prices right now is because people are not taking on more debt to drive prices up.
So that's the biggest factor, right? So, I had breakfast with a real estate attorney today who practices a lot and handled a lot and handled a lot of the REOs, the foreclosures in the Bank of America world. And so he was talking about the 3 million houses that are in loan forbearance
right now, yeah.
And I was like, whoa. If you think that these houses are going to cause a big foreclosure boom, it's not.
Well, dude,
right?
My dad went into forbearance last year. The dude's been a pilot for American for 40 years or something. He's fine, right? But if they tell you can get your shit for basically no cash outlay for a year, why wouldn't you do that?
Exactly. And so
I just totally sold him out there. But I'm
yeah.
saying we all did that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you?
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah. I got the money. We'll pay it back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, why wouldn't you?
And that's
And plus, we didn't know back then.
and that's the biggest misunderstanding that people have. There's people we've had a person on this show that does short sales, right? And you see a lot of the marketing material that's coming out. It's the foreclosure crisis is coming.
The title of our
short sale.
episode today.
Right? But yes, our
we're
title.
we're adding to it.
Yeah.
Right. But those people truly believe that the short sale market and the foreclosure market is going to be it's going to be like '08 all over again. And I understand the sky is falling marketing mentality, but if you as an agent don't know how to explain this to your clients and you're asking them or telling them to hold off from buying or you agree with them that prices are going to come drastically down, I mean, just go look at the down payments that people are putting down. Look at how much cash is being put into the real estate market. This is not the ninja loans of 2008. Ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets, right? So that was truly built on just air.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, that's like putting a framed house together and you're not putting any nails in it.
Yeah, no
and
insulation.
no insulation and not sticking it together. Hopefully nobody comes and just pushes on it.
Well, you brought up a good point yesterday, and I won't steal your point because one, I couldn't articulate it, but when you were talking about what a bubble is compared to cash assets,
Sure.
and when you broke that down for the team yesterday, it was dead on. I'd love for you to say it again for those people who don't really understand that.
It's just really simple, right? We could talk about the 2008 crisis all we want, right? But in the most basic premise you could imagine, we had people that were way too over leveraged, right? Go back to ninja loans. You had people that were not able to make what their eventual payments were going to be when their adjustable rate mortgages kicked in, or their rates adjusted, and they had mortgages that were way too big and not enough money to pay. The difference in this scenario, and I'm not saying there's not going to be a leveling out of pricing, but the difference in this scenario is, I've talked shit about appraisers on this show before, and I now have to take that back. Appraisals have actually been really, really steady. They're doing their jobs and they're keeping the market fair and balanced and not being influenced by, outside sources or whatever. What is happening are people are guaranteeing over appraised values for their offers, and they are spending their after-tax hard-earned American dollars in cash to buy these homes, which means that you're not taking on more debt to pay more for that house, right? If you offer $50,000 over asking price, okay, but you're paying that $50,000 in cash, you're not taking on more debt. That means that that's not going to come back to bite you later. That $50K was already earned. You already paid the taxes on it. It's already gone now to the seller of that home. That's you're square. We're done, right? If we were taking on a lot more leverage is what leads to bubbles. If you think about leverage just blowing more air into the bubble. Well, I'm buying the home in my own hard-earned dollars that have already been taxed and everything. There's no reason that should lead to a bubble. What it will eventually lead to is people running out of money, right?
Yes.
This can only go on for so long. And it's obviously it's why certain areas of the country are hotter than others. Texas, North Texas especially, is incredibly hot right now. So is Austin. That's because you see people from California, New York, and other places that are selling at very high price points in different markets and moving to more affordable markets and going, oh shit, I just sold a house for $2 million and I can get the same house for $500,000 here. Like, I'll pay whatever you want and I'll pay it in cash. Eventually that gravy train ends. But how it ends in a bubble, someone's going to have to explain to me how it ends in a crash rather than a leveling out. Buyer fatigue will obviously set in, but that doesn't mean the whole thing's going to come crashing down.
And I feel like we've already seen, at least here locally, we've already kind of experienced the buyer fatigue aspect of this. This is the same thing that happened here in 16 and 17.
Yeah.
I remember Nick saying, like, we didn't realize that stuff started to slow down in 2017 until about 6 months later.
Yeah.
But it was the same thing. It just felt like buyers were finally over it. And that was the end of kind of everything that was going on. So this is a legitimate question because this is something that I've wondered. As these appraisals come in, right, and the houses continue to appraise, it would almost have to take a home not selling in that market for 6 to 7 months. Because here's the thing is, if I put my house on I now have the new comp is 400, right?
Right.
I put my house on the market for 415. It sells for 415. Then somebody else puts it on there at 425.
Sure.
So now all of a sudden the prices went up. Well, those comps are good for 6 months.
Right.
You almost have to have, in a neighborhood perspective, almost nobody lists their house in a bad market in order just for those comps to become irrelevant, just for any new perspective to come in, right?
Or people list their homes and then buyers just not sell.
And then they
buyers
still
just not buy it.
And
right?
that's ultimately what will probably be the thing that happens.
That's what you're going to, we saw this. This is actually a great example. We had talked about this in 2016. I think it was like July of 2016. All of a sudden, it just seemed like listings stopped selling so fast, right? I remember Denton and Guam, a good friend of ours, and I had a listing on the same street. And just all of a sudden, we were like, where the fuck did all my showings go? You know what I mean? Like, and that's, it feels, obviously we stand really close to the mirror because we're in real estate. So to us, it feels like it happens like that, right? Like one week we're getting a lot of showings and the other week, and next week we're not. But that's how this probably ends, right? Is we have more inventory come in towards the summer. And then what happens is right now we have trouble getting inventory on the market. Naturally, you're going to see an increase in inventory when school gets out, when we get into the summer and stuff. And that's probably going to coincide with eventually you're going to have enough people that run out of cash that those two, it's going to be a perfect storm. Those two forces are going to collide and not end in a crash, but end in, now all of a sudden we have fewer showings per listing. Now all of a sudden we're not getting 50 offers per list, per thing or whatever, like it's going to level out. But the idea that there's this atomic bomb brewing, I don't see the mechanics for that.
No, and I've got this article pulled up, and this was for a video that we did to send out to our database, right? And it talked about the Robert Deitz from the National Association of Home Builders said we're not going to see a crash in the housing market, but we are expecting some cooling off, because we are at unsustainable growth rates, right? And which we are, because we talked about this off before the show. Because Aaron, we didn't plan this 5 minutes; it was 10 minutes before we started the show. By the way,
at least 10 minutes.
Right?
We pretty much doubled our time and planning
10,
time for you today.
10 minutes, right? But with the way housing prices going, I mean, overall housing prices in the first quarter were up over 12%. Yeah. Eventually,
that's crazy.
Eventually, pricing is going to be too high versus income, because income's not catching up fast enough, and then you've got the gap, right? And then you start getting, and this is sometimes the agent's fault, where they're just talking to homeowners like, let's just price it as high as we can. Let's see.
Yeah, you're going to see
pushing.
that
Let's
too.
keep pushing. Let's keep pushing. Eventually you can't push any further, right? That's a little bit of the real estate agent's fault. Yeah. Because they're not truly understanding the value of what they're providing,
and they're not setting expectations,
right? And not setting the right expectations. But if we're still trying to compare the 3 million that is in loan forbearance and default right now, by the way, home prices are still going up. It's going up faster than what their delinquencies are, right? The late payments that they have, and so what you may see happen. And this is where, as a real estate agent, this is where if you're going to get your notepad out on this, you're going to write this down. How do you capitalize on those 3 million homes that are in default in loan forbearance right now, right? Because one, that can help satisfy some of this buyer demand that's out there. These homeowners eventually will have to sell. They're not upside down. They're not underwater. So it's not going to be a short sale.
Right.
Right. They're not going to typically probably go through the foreclosure process. So how do you get in front of those, and how is your messaging going to match what they're going through right now?
So how do you?
I mean, look, part of it
is
is
a great point, by the way.
It is, and I'm sure there's ways to focus your efforts more. But part of finding these opportunities is staying in high levels of activity too, like whatever that looks like. And I know that's such an annoying thing for real estate agents to hear.
Sure.
And this will never be like a go sit down and lead generate show, because that's just not how we all do things.
There's enough shows like that.
But I will also say that doesn't mean that our level of activity is not intense and high all the time, focused on the things that we're doing. And as a real estate agent, if your main source of business is buyers and sellers, then your activity needs to be intensive and focused on those types of people. And you will find, while I agree with Nick, you need to find specific sources for these types of people. The more conversations you're having on a daily basis, specifically with sellers, explaining to them the market and what's really going on and what you're seeing, is going to increase your opportunities a ton.
Well, and that is the market, right?
Yeah.
So 3 million. This article said 2.3. The attorney today said 3. So let's just cut it in half. It's 2.6.
2.6,
right? 2.6. But to go with what you were talking about, Brian, we don't know when this foreclosure ban is going to end. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is proposing to extend the pausing of foreclosures until 2022, right? That way it makes it easier for borrowers to request changes to their home loans that would allow them to afford to stay in their house, right? Because here's the thing, and this is what my meeting about this morning was about, is like, we're not going to see these being released because the government doesn't want to have egg on their face, right? They're looking to get reelected. Right.
Yeah,
so
you start a foreclosure bubble and then it pops while you're in the same administration or whatever, right? Or your same term. Yeah, like it doesn't look good, right? If you allow that to expire and people haven't caught up yet, it looks really bad.
Aren't there a lot of seats up for grab next year too?
And that's the reason, right? So you're over here, and look, everyone is blaming a lot of people. Let's say a lot of people are blaming the government on this for shutting everything down again.
Look, the thing is, I think you can find people.
Right.
You don't have to have beliefs specifically. Both sides are pissed at the government all the time.
Well, sure. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we can just say it. Whether or not you agree with things being shut down or not, it was the government's decision to do that. So it is their fault, right? Whether or not it was the right decision or not. This isn't a political show, but that was the course of action that was taken.
So you go back to the 2008 era, and we look at, all right, can we look at the history trend, right? So what happened then in the Obama president era was they put programs in place for lenders to work out solutions for the delinquent homeowners, right? So that it wouldn't go to foreclosure. And so here, there's going to be, in my opinion, right, there's going to be some type of incentive for these lenders. And by the way, the incentive is, hey, we'll keep extending the foreclosure ban until y'all figure something out, right? So something's going to give here.
Something has to give here, because I say that to say, if you're now we're kind of getting into it, almost a different conversation. The further you kick that can down the road, understand that institutional investors backed by usually large corporations are the ones that are the investors of those notes on the back end through mortgage bonds. So eventually the servicers will run out of money to pay I'm getting too complicated, but they're obviously going to have to pay the disbursements on the bonds eventually, right? If you don't have money because the people aren't making their home loans, like, now you're going to start to see banks collapsing. There's a whole puppet show going on here.
And that could cause some type of, that could be some issues there.
That's what I don't think this market ends in a crash, but I do think if you continue to kick the can down the road on mortgage forbearance, yes, somebody will be left holding the bag.
Yes. Right. And
money is still finite. It's sort of.
Yes. But at this very moment, look, if you are on that boat and you're having buyers talking to you and saying, look, no, I'm just going to wait for prices to come down. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, lumber's not coming down for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Concrete prices not coming down. The cost to build new construction is not coming down.
No, it's not even, and here's the thing is, we're not even taking the part of this in that builders have not incentivized to build houses right now. Why in the world would they want to go out? I just closed on one yesterday. We went under contract in October.
Yeah.
They closed yesterday.
Wow.
Almost assuredly, those people could probably sell that house for $60,000 more than they contracted it at right now.
Yep.
Because in October, this didn't exist, right?
I closed a new construction last week, and we had some issues leading up to it. And I won't name the builder. They're very sweet representatives, but the people actually responsible for the build, a little problem here, a little problem there, a little problem here. The motivation to get shit done was so low, because they're like, we'll gladly put this thing back on the market.
Well, if you want to talk about, look, everything's going on, and this is where you start seeing, again, we're not seeing the cooling off period anytime soon. Is Nate Fisher, episode 90 something as well.
Yeah.
Right. Had a verbally agreed upon builder contract. The builder could not execute that contract for 30 days. 30 days comes up. Builder rep calls him. Hey, Nate, by the way, price went up $10,000.
Fuck you.
Of course it did. Of course it did.
Nate calls me. Hey, what do I do? Well, it's extortion. You have to pay it.
Yeah. Right? It sucks. And they're going to do that to another buyer, and that buyer will pay it too.
Look, and so just remember that during this time, I know builders are paying 1% commissions now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them starting to come out that way. So as a real estate professional, you have to get educated on this. And there's too many people not educating themselves on this matter. And hopefully this show today gets you at least starting to Google and research what's going on, understanding, the economics of this. There's a lot of shit that's coming out, right? There's concern, we're still hearing that the expectations for the job economy is actually going to go through the roof. That is expectations, right? But we're still on that. You want to talk about a bubble? That is kind of the bubble.
Well, the bubble there is essentially you have, I don't mean this to sound like mean or anything. You have enough people that are still incentivized to not go back to work. You look on the news at all right now, there's a hiring crisis right now. We don't have enough workers in the workforce right now. It's not the stability that we usually have, right? Because there's some incentive for enough people to not be working at the same rate that they were before, right? Well, then you're going to eventually run out of people to tax, right? The only way to continue those programs and to pay people a living, not wage, but to keep people above water is to raise taxes, which is what they're working on right now. But eventually you'll run out of people to tax if people don't go back to work. So that is probably the biggest, you call it bubble or whatever, that we're facing. Eventually, people there's more job openings right now than we know what to do with.
Well, and again, how do you, as a real estate agent, let's go back, and I know that we just posted in the comments, and if
I just don't get that shit like you guys do. I'm sorry.
I don't know what's going on with it, man. But
stupid iPhone.
If you're
X.
watching this, and so far this. Look, hopefully this is valuable. I'm going to tell you this is good shit today. good shit today.
Yeah.
Right.
But coming off a live episode, we got
a new table. We got this plant.
New
We're
table.
just bringing it.
In this though, right now, if this is valuable, share this out, tag a real estate agent. We've got 36 people watching this live at the moment. And we're also proud to announce a new sponsor of the show. Here in Texas, at least, if you're looking for an amazing loan officer, amazing lending company, Michael DeBacker, Mortgage Mike, awesome guy, awesome. Go to mortgagemikeoftexas.com. I'm going to tell you right now, this dude will make you look like a rock star in front of your clients. He gets shit done. I mean, look, everything that a lender says and promises, he'll say that as well.
Mm-hmm.
He goes all over Texas. What did you say? What was that line?
Bad golfer, good lender.
Well, you did say that, but he lends all over Texas and even
your mom's house.
That's right. Right. So from that, how do we capitalize right now? How do we capitalize on this market to make sure that we are getting buyers into houses right now? Because you do have that group that is still sitting there, and there's a good pool of buyers. Even though we've got inventory issues. That's fine.
Yep.
But even if you had a bigger pool of buyers to pick and choose from that has the cash, but they're sitting here and waiting on prices to drop. How do you get them and say, guys, let's make sure that we get you in a home. Let's make sure that we take advantage of the equity run up, the valuation that's going up right now.
That's what it is. It's the equity run up part. If you're telling buyers right now that it's a bad idea, think about this. If you're so sure that there's going to be a leveling off of this market, right? Like, because I just disagree that it's going to be this downward plummet. Sure. But I will agree it has to plateau. If you're so sure that that's eventually going to happen, doesn't it make sense to get in a house sooner?
Yeah, it's got some rocket fuel in it.
Why other people are acting insane that will continue to boost you up? Because I know here locally on our MLS, and I'll tell you, I don't know the sizes of MLSs, but you'd be hard pressed to find a bigger MLS than the Netris Matrix for North Dallas or for North Texas. It stretches in a massive area.
Grower and a shower.
And it holds a lot of agents in it. And that entire thing from February to March was up 14.5%.
That's nuts.
So the reality is in January, now if you foresaw this, you're just a smarter man than everybody else at this table. But if in January you were saying house prices are too much, you shouldn't jump in, you cost your clients 14.5% in potential equity on paper in the span of 60 days.
So even if it continues to go up half of that in the next quarter, that's still an awesome return, right? That's still more built-in equity. I think part of it is...
Wait, hold on real quick. So you have that run-up, right? And this is something that we looked at during the recession in 08, 12 and everything. Like, even if prices were going to come down, we actually were talking about this in 16. If you get in now and you have the run-up, it's kind of like the Bitcoin or even some of these other cryptos.
Get that Doge, bro.
Yeah, the Doge, right? You get to get in, and if prices cool off, let's say there's a tiny dip. Let's say there is a dip before there's a leveling off. You can afford to absorb that versus, all right, you wait 2 years from now and you truly bought past the peak, but you're still buying at peak prices, and all of a sudden there is that bust. Well, now you're the one left holding the bag.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, dude, do you want to buy? Like, just think about it. Prices run up. Okay, fantastic. Now I buy a house. And I bought a house for 20% more than I would have 3 years ago. And then we have a 5% dip because we have this buyer fatigue and stuff. Well, dude, am I still not
back at where you started?
Yeah, right? Like, am I still doing okay?
Yeah.
Of course I am. Also, if you're buying a home with the intention of selling it in a couple of years, rent an apartment. People live in homes for at least 5 years. Like, why are we thinking so short term?
Is some of this just, and let's be honest, the super Americanism of just not understanding how percentages of our money work and not saving?
Bro, it's
our
also
wealth
the
building
gratification part, dude. Yeah. It's the thinking right here where the mirror is.
That's what I'm saying. Is this a byproduct of less than 2% of Americans can actually pay their bills for more than 3 months if they needed to? Is this just as a society we're not educated about how these small percentages are literally what millionaires build their wealth on?
And let's talk about, unfortunately, our real estate professionals.
And for sure,
let's again, they're not taking time to educate themselves on this. If you had a better group of agents, or more educated group of agents, getting that message out there, then you wouldn't be having that. The problem is I've seen it. We've seen it in the groups. We've seen them posting and saying, guys, your buyer should not be buying now. Well, what?
How can you go into just in general, if you're watching the show, although I think everybody who watches the show is smarter than the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, because you're watching this show.
But if you're going into a national group and posting something specific about your market and you can't understand why everybody doesn't agree with you, just kind of look in the mirror a little bit first off, right?
We talked about this pre-show, right? Like, how much buzz are we getting about the bubble and it's going to crash right now? But like we talked about this before, like how many agents do you really think can articulate in a very like at least with some sort of specificity how the 2008 crash unfolded, right? Like, and if you can't do that, which it's been widely publicized, written about, like there's so much documentation on why what happened. If you can't even articulate that, but you're out there advising buyers and you're talking about this looming crisis, or at least trying to answer questions for them, like, hey, should I wait until prices come down? If you're giving advice, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you are more of a liability than an asset right now, and like that's a mean thing to say, but also this is sort of what we do for a living. You should be pretty good at it, I think.
Well, and you should continue to dig in to understand it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is it. Your education doesn't stop. I mean, this is
never stops.
You when we were bringing up those chairs, you're like, man, you've been doing this longer than I have. This market's crazy, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I are still studying the market. Kelderman's still studying the market, right? And you have to. It's not stopping. It's ever changing, right? And coming in here and really being able to focus in on, all right, how do I articulate this in a way that actually people understand it,
right? Because
you can say, look, prices are just going to keep going up, and then you can get into the micro of it, of why it's going up, but it's going to go over people's head. But you just look at, all right, the trend lines, there's not a cooling off period. The showings have not slowed down, right?
No.
The offers at this moment have not slowed down. The inventory levels have not increased.
Yeah.
Right? That's
been pretty surprising to me this late in April.
Here's the thing is, I don't see how it can, right? We're at this weird thing where we've got this weird knot tied in the real estate market to where we can't convince people to list because they know there's nowhere to go. Yeah. It's not, this morning I was on a listing appointment where this dude is probably going to make 30% on his home. Like a ton of money.
Not bad.
And he's like, I don't really know what to do after I sell it, right?
Where do I go?
Part of what Nick's talking about is I think ultimately if you're just not a problem solver by nature, you're going to struggle anyways. And if in a regular real estate market that was a little bit easier, especially on the buy side, you were just kind of writing contracts and looking at comps, there's a lot more problem solving that you have to do right now.
You often talk about being nimble in conversation.
Yes,
there's
you have to be.
more important time right now than this.
You just have to hear what people are saying and understand it, right? For instance, this appointment we're on this morning, it's a list. He needs to go somewhere else. He needs to rent for a little bit, right? So it's putting the whole package together of what it looks like for him in order to make it happen for some of this inventory to pop. Of course, if we could just get all the sellers on the phone for 5 minutes and be like, okay, for all of you that want to sell tomorrow at noon, make that bitch live. All this goes away in one afternoon. And that's not how it works.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like we talk about at the grocery store, like we're in Texas now, so we don't have to wear masks, but we can. And there's oftentimes I'm standing around, I'm like, do these 6 other people want to take theirs off, or should I ask them? Like, nobody wants to ask that question. I don't mean to be mean about it, but I feel like sometimes we're doing it because nobody else wants to not do it. And the same with sellers. Like, if you do it, will I do it? And then you do it, and then we're good. Yep. Like, but it also won't happen.
I mean, from that point though, your appointment today. Mm-hmm. Right, he's going to make 30%. Is the main objection for them right now for that client? Is he holding off until you can get him into another place, or is he worried about the pricing? What were his main objections right now?
Yeah, so his main objection was definitely not somewhere to go, right? Like it was that he didn't have somewhere to go, right? He's like, what am I supposed to do? I want to stay in this very specific community, right? I don't want to leave here because my daughter's in these schools. So essentially, the conversation became part of a larger conversation. Is okay, how am I not only your listing agent? How am I also your problem solver? How do I make sure that we get people in here to fix these holes and make sure the home sells and the sale sticks and all of those things? And then on top of it, how are we able to make sure that you understand what the next steps are, what the game plan is for the next steps? A lot of this is just, when we talk about educating the seller, it's not about just throwing 14.4% at them and all these other things and showing them your list price versus sales price. Yeah. That's all sexy stuff when you're in a listing appointment hammering down with people.
Sure.
People just want their problems to be solved, right? They just want some help getting from point A to point B, right?
Isn't that what's crazy about, if you want to ask like the craziest part of this whole market is how easy it is to sell listings right now. But usually in a hot seller's market, we talk about like, almost the client service aspect being secondary because things happen so fast. I've never really seen a market where things move so fast, but also the client service aspect of it is so important.
Think it's more important right now.
Crazy,
100%.
yeah.
But let's actually this Ricky Bell has a good point. So what you just said is entirely true. So whoever said that, by the way, was that Matt or Brian?
Didn't fucking say it.
I probably stole it from somebody.
I didn't see the comment.
The fear of where do I go now is a large fear factor, right? And until the narrative that changes about the lack of inventory. So I'm going to tell you right now, inventory levels is going to be the biggest sign, the tell sign of what's happening. The minute you start to see month after month after month of increased inventory, that's when you start to see the cooling off period happening.
I'll tell you guys right now, man, if you're watching this podcast, this is where I'm gonna put it to you a little bit. If you're not out there creating inventory for your buyers, what the fuck are you doing right now? Like, we are in a situation where people who own an asset that is leveraged at least 80%, maybe more by a bank, and you're making a return of an average nationally of 5% a year, and right now you're making it 14% in one quarter. If you're not getting that message out to people and getting them to sell their asset because it's time to cash out, because what a hell of a return, you're like, that's your lead generation right now. Your lead generation is not like, look, we do all the stuff. We call the expireds, we pound the pavement in a big way. We do a lot of marketing, right? But we're talking the stuff that we usually do on like wholesale side and stuff. We're doing that stuff now for listings, right? We are creating inventory. And that is, you like, we'll just talk a little shit. We took 27 listings last month. We will probably take a little over 20 this month. It was because we create inventory. If you're not doing that right now, that is where at least some of your focus does need to be. You can't wait for that stuff to happen.
So how do you create the inventory?
We dive super deep, right? I will say right now, we're pulling stuff like water shutoff lists, code violation stuff, right? Like who has assets that they're almost accidentally making money on that they just haven't liquidated yet, right? Like how do you you know what I mean? Like we want to talk about where I'm going to go. Let's figure out some bridge loan action. Let's do FHA. What's the one where you can renovate? Is that K?
203K.
203K. Yeah. Right. Like there's a lot of creative ways you can get people into homes that they have a lot of control over. And that all just comes down to, I wouldn't even say pounding the pavement. It's finding innovative ways to reach people and have conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have in a market with a lot of inventory. This is not just going and calling FSBOs. This is finding the people that really would be the people you would find in different scenarios, maybe even for investment properties or stuff like that. But if you just think about it broader, we stand very close to the mirror as real estate agents. Here's where listings come from. Let's step back from the mirror and think about it a little bit more in like macroeconomic terms. Who's got assets that have now appreciated a ton, and what's our message to them, and how can we convey that?
So go back to the 37 to 38 minute mark and listen to what Brian just said, right? He gave you some tips on how to start creating inventory, right? Now, you want to figure out how to go do that, just Google it, right? Everything that you're doing right now in creating inventory right now.
This isn't hard stuff.
I'm going to tell you, this is the being a proactive agent is what's going to make you a shit ton of money, right? The reactive agent, by the way, is the one sitting on their hands. They've got clients coming in, but they're like, oh, I'll just set you up on an MLS search.
Let me know when you see something you like.
Let me know when you see something you like, and then we'll go out and look at it.
If that's your bit, tell me you're not getting mauled right now.
Yeah.
Just tell me you're not.
Well, here's the thing. There's a third type of agent out there too right now. Here's the agent that's got but there's the agent out there that's so busy with buyers and stuff right now that they're busy, but they're not even busy creating inventory, right? So like there's this weird thing where we have busy agents that also aren't being productive because they're not getting their offers accepted, but they're so busy. We have agents out there that are waiting for inventory to show up, right? And then we have agents in the middle sitting on their hands. Anybody who's out there actually creating the market right now, like this kind of goes back to, it's almost like 80s stockbroker style right now. Go make a market right now. Go find somebody who has an asset that they need to sell. Go bring that message to them.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not trying to create inventory and you're working only buyers, your paycheck's getting cut because of, again, the builders are cutting commissions.
Yeah.
right? Listing agents are starting to cut buyer's agent commission because I'm starting to hear the complaints.
Yeah.
Right. And so you want your paycheck to go up. Well, either work with more clients and make less money, right? Or figure out how to create that inventory as well.
Here's the thing is, if you're like me for the first 4 years of my career and you were nervous about calling sellers because you just thought of yourself as a buyer's agent, make those same calls, asking those same sellers, if you have a legitimate buyer
For your buyers. Yeah.
for your buyers,
Yeah.
and tell me you don't somehow get listings.
Seriously,
You
man.
just will,
And
right?
you do it with that. I mean, we talked about this at our team meeting yesterday. We have our team meeting every Tuesday. And we're talking about just doing it down to the studs, man. Your open houses, great. You're going to have 25 people through your open houses, at least every single open house, because people are pounding the door down. We have been seeing more represented people with their agents come through their open houses, and people are going, oh, it's great, but a lot of people already have an agent. I'm like, bro, why are you not out there knocking 200 doors before your open house, spreading the word? That's how you meet the sellers. That's how you spread the message.
Yeah.
How about you do an open house on a listing that already has 10 offers, and you go, look, I'm going to do this open house, but I don't even think it's necessary. We already got 10 offers. Do you know anybody else in the neighborhood that's looking to sell? Because I'm kind of wasting my time from 2 to 4 on Saturday right now, but I'd love to find another asset right here that somebody can cash out on. Like, there's a little bit of gangsterness that goes into this. You know what I mean?
I agree.
You need help pulling those lists. Go back to the 37 or 38 minute mark that Brian talked about. You need help finding those leads, right? Go to connect with Justin Nelson, Sphere Rocket VA. Guess what? Your virtual assistant could be doing that for you. They could
I don't do any of it.
Exactly. They could be pulling your list right now, right? Guess what? They can also help you with the marketing to find a way to market to these potential sellers so that you're creating inventory. You're setting yourself and your business up to win. SphereRocketVA.com. Connect with Justin Nelson right now, because that's $3 to $4 an hour.
Bro, it is so worth it.
100, yeah,
So worth it.
that's all I got.
You know.
I'm
gonna
sorry. We had a lot of live viewers today. I'm sorry to let them down, but I feel like that was one of our most jammed. I think this plant's giving off an energy that's
This
really helping
fake-ass
us.
plant.
Yeah. Guys, if this was valuable, if it was jam packed with some great ideas today, tag an agent. Let's keep this going. Share this out. Go over to iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review, please, and go to the Only Real Estate Group worth being a part of on Facebook. That way, we can continue the conversation there.
Exactly. Make sure to leave us your questions every week, guys. We want to start answering some of those things and kind of be a little more interactive on the show too, man. So
Love y'all.
love you. Jesse, get us out of here, buddy. Thanks for watching the show today. Make sure if you're watching this on Facebook, you head over to our group, the Only Real Estate Group, with being a part of, so you can watch the extended conversation. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you listen on the Apple Podcast, leave us a review. We'd really like it. So just do it. Do it. Do that over there. Go to this one, and then go to that one. Thanks.